Good evening or morning or whatever time of the day it happens to be. Welcome one, welcome all to the Writer's Block podcast. My name is Greg Nikes. I am your host, and this week on the podcast I'm talking with author, professor, activist, crocheter extraordinaire Brittney Cooper to talk about her latest book, her very first children's book, Mama, I'm Fine. We'll dive into Brittney's mission of empowering voices for women, her experience transitioning her writing style for a younger audience, what it really means to be fine, and so much more. If you're enjoying the Writer's Block podcast, please consider leaving us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you get your podcasts. You can find us on social media, Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube. We are at Writer's Block Pod. Get involved if you want to be a part of the show. Send us an email. We are writersblockpod@gmail.com. And if you want to go the extra mile, you can find us on Patreon. All right, housekeeping out of the way, let's get into today's conversation with Brittney Cooper. Brittney, you are a professor who has spent years in classrooms and lecture halls speaking to occasionally overflowing crowds. I'm just curious, if we were to go back in time, what kind of a student was Brittney?
I was a very good student, a little bit of a goody two shoes, very much an overachiever, loved to read, kind of nerdy and awkward. Absolutely. The kind of student that wants to stay in school for the rest of their life as a teacher, clearly.
You speak a lot about empowerment in your works, be it in your books or your lectures. Do you remember the first time that you realized that you had something to say and that your voice carried weight?
My entire life, my mom we would be out places and I would be telling stories or being boisterous, and she would say, pipe down, your voice carries, right? And so I was always made aware, I was very much the kid that got marked down on my report cards because I always, needed to exercise self-control. I talked too much. I was very much that kid. And so I knew that people were listening and paying attention, but I didn't necessarily know what it meant to direct all of that power. I came to learn it, I think maybe, let's say, the fourth grade when I went to school and I was reading a young adult biography of Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks. And my teacher came up to me and said, what you reading? And they had these activities in the back of the book, and you could like make a play. And I said to the teacher, could we make a class play about Martin Luther King and Rosa Parks? And she let me do it. And my best friend and I put on a play for the whole fourth grade about the Montgomery bus boycott. And so I think that it was teachers and books that helped me to realize that there were ways to make a difference in the world.
I'm always curious with people like you. You have such a multifaceted career and view of the world, and you do so many different things. When you meet someone new, do you introduce yourself as professor, as an activist, as an author? What is the label that you like to introduce yourself as?
I mean, mostly I just say that I'm Brittney, and then it depends on the space, right? I typically would say professor or teacher because I see myself as an educator. But these days I'm also in spaces where I'm like, oh, I'm a crocheter, I'm a knitter, I'm a weaver. And then sometimes folks will say, but aren't you like a writer? Sure, sure, sure. I'm also a writer, but
I am, but look at this thing I made. It's so cool.
that's right, correct. That's exactly right.
Your work reframes emotions that are traditionally stigmatized in women. What emotional narratives are you most interested in reclaiming right now, either on the page or in the greater world?
I've done a lot of work to reclaim women's right to their rage. I've done a lot of work to help women to understand that they are not crazy for feeling, you know, feeling like there are a set of pressures against us that don't sort of value our contributions, or where people don't acknowledge our intelligence, our contribution, our powers of leadership. I think celebrating mothers is one way to do that because mothers are the original life managers of everybody, and the level of management and coordination skills are top notch if you're a mom. And sometimes we don't understand that as having any kind of market value, largely because it is related to our devaluing of both moms and children in our society. And so this is a celebration of all of the genius and brilliance and leadership that moms bring to the table, and all the ways that kids meet us there in that work.
Feminism, identity, and Black empowerment take center stage in your work, which up to now has been aimed more at a mature audience.
Yeah.
Was it challenging to shift those themes towards something meant for children, for Mama, I'm Fine? Or did you feel like it was just a natural extension of your ability and the messages you have to share?
Listen, there's so many wonderful children's book authors, so I wouldn't say that it was easy. I definitely, have had to work to learn the genre and to figure out how to, communicate with the complexity that I like, but do that in clear and simple language. So I don't think that that's an easy process. But I do think that what the through line is for me is that I always want to be speaking to the most expansive set of audiences. There's a way sometimes that we have really good ideas in academe, but we talk about them in ways that no one can understand what we mean or what we're saying, and it's kind of ridiculous. And so throughout my career, I've said, let's figure out how to say the things that matter, but say them in plain language that does not dumb down, does not disrespect people, whether those people are adults or children, but that invites them into a conversation. And that's what I'm trying to do here is say children are super observant, they're very funny and very serious, and they expect to be taken seriously. And in that way, they are just like the rest of us. And I want to do that in my work.
Yeah, and I think this book does a very good job of not watering down some of those things. I know, with a children's book, you have a lot of, oh, here's this, beautiful imagery, and you have an amazing artist for this book in Tamisha. For me, there were some moments though that like they really stood out as like powerful punches. Was there a moment with your relationship with your artist that maybe you saw something that you didn't expect or it hit you differently, or you went, oh my God, that's brilliant.
Tamisha's a beautiful illustrator, and I just feel like with just a few kind of inspirational images, she really captured the spirit of this book. And so, for me, the most poignant images are the ones that are about this little black girl with black girl ponytails, and there's a heart in the book that's a really striking image of the ponytails coming together and having all these affirming words in them. And so much of that relationship between Black moms and daughters in particular, but I would say mothers and daughters in general, is like, how do you raise confident girls who know how to like value themselves, both to affirm their appearance, but also to value themselves beyond their appearance for their brains and their character? And I just thought that this was a really great way to capture that.
The phrase "I'm fine" is something that we all recognize, but it often hides more than it reveals. What did you want to unpack about that idea?
Yeah, a couple of things. So one, my mom was a late boomer, early Gen Xer, and they were minimalist in terms of their emotional language, which is like a thing they get dinged for a lot now. But I wanted to go back to that moment and say that I grew up in a house where my mom was a woman of few words about things that really mattered, but they were the right words, they were impactful, and you had to be able to understand them in context, right? And so I'm fine meant lots of different things depending on where we were and what was going on. It meant you're a very fine young lady. It meant, you scraped your knee, but you're fine. You're okay. It meant you did a very fine job in school with this report card. It could mean all of those different things. And I wanted to capture that because I also want my young readers to understand that one word can have many meanings. And part of what it means to be in good relationship with folks is to really try to hear what they actually mean, right? This can also keep you from getting in trouble because sometimes it looks like your parent is asking you to do something, but really they're
Yeah.
telling you to do it.
Yeah, it's more of a strongly worded suggestion than anything else. Yeah.
That's right.
This book has this recurring theme of emotional inheritance, what we carry from our mothers and from our communities. What did you discover about that inheritance while writing this book, and how much did you draw from the maternal relationships in your own life for these characters?
Yeah. I mean, this book is heavily indebted to my relationship with my mom, but also, I like to tell people my mom had three sisters and also my grandmother, and I grew up in a family surrounded by those women. My emotional inheritance is one of being strong and deeply sort of confident in one's own counsel, like the ability to hold my own ground and stand on my own 2 feet. I think every woman in my family really wanted all of us kids to have that understanding of ourselves. And I was trying to think through in this book, what are the explicit ways that they communicated that to us? And so I would come home from school. I got bullied a lot because, as I said, I was a goody two shoes and I was a weirdo and a nerd. And that can be a little bit difficult for you. And I would come home and I would, think that there was all these things wrong with me. And my mom would say, "You're fine," right? And that was the way to say, don't apologize for the space you take up. Don't apologize for how you show up in the world. Who you are is enough and it is okay. That's one of the best gifts that our adults can give us, whoever they are, is to tell us that we're enough. And this was the language that was used to communicate that to me. And I wanted to capture that.
How do you think that social expectations around strength are shaping the way that people interpret wellness and vulnerability?
Yeah, in this moment, there's always the risk that someone will think that what I'm trying to say is just say you're fine, even when things are falling apart, right? And that's absolutely not the message. Sometimes things are not fine, and we should say that too. What I want to do in this moment is give parents and kids a little bit of a break. I am a proud auntie and godmother and bonus mom to my partner's kids. And I watch my parent friends and loved ones, and everyone is so hard on themselves. So if you have to be extraordinary, excellent, and fantastic all day, every day, that is a lot of pressure. And it's very hard to live up to. And so I want parents to feel like if all you did was a fine job that day, it will work. The socks, maybe they don't match, but they have two socks, then you did fine, right? And maybe you didn't make an A on that test, or maybe you spelled Wednesday wrong on the spelling test, which is a word I certainly spelled wrong. And it's fine, you'll get it right the next time. I want us to release the pressure valve on each other. And I wanted to show the ways that my mom and I and the adults and kids in my life, the way that we did that for each other. And it gives kids an opportunity to say, even though they're adults and they're responsible for us, we can pay attention. And sometimes maybe our parents need a little bit of encouragement too to say, like, you're doing a good job,
Yeah.
you're doing it right.
Yeah, I also could not spell Wednesday for the longest time, so I thank you for making me feel less alone today. So for those moments then when adult you now is you're not fine, but you're fine.
Yeah.
How have you learned to kind of manage and navigate those complicated emotions? Like, because even now I'm 31 and I still have these issues with how do I find the best ways to cope and with my own emotions?
One of the reasons that this book matters so much to me, I started writing it before my mom passed away, and then she has since passed away. And so I'm learning every day to live with the grief of not having my kind of emotional compass here. And I think that what I've tried to do for myself is just to lower the stakes and yes, do my emotional work, and yes, to be honest, but also to recognize that the sort of like overachieving black girl thing that I was doing as a kid is not the best way to make it through life and as an adult. Things are really hard. And sometimes you have to settle for this was my best. It may not be the best that could ever be done, but it was the best that I could do today. And it is sufficient. So I've been trying, even with emotional work, right? Even with learning how to cope with emotions, I think we live in a moment where folks think that we have so much more complexity in terms of our emotional vocabulary. People have gone to therapy, and some people are weaponizing that therapy online against other people. Um, what I am clear about is that having more language does not necessarily mean that we're getting better at loving people, or that we're more sophisticated in our emotional lives. That language only serves us in as much as we can integrate it. And that's why this book is a little bit counterintuitive, because going back to the language of like fine, when it can be so charged and loaded, is also a way to say part of what it invites you to do is to be very present to your context. If a kid is really paying attention to their parent and a parent is really paying attention to their kid, we all know what fine means in that moment. Sometimes it means, well, fine. If someone walks away angrily and says, well, fine, we know that it is not fine and we should work on it, right? We don't need complex language in order to have deep and rich emotional connections with each other. And inviting kids into that conversation reminds us of that. And so maybe we can stop thinking that more language is going to solve the problem and help us to realize that it's the quality of the relationship, the time spent, and the care and intention with which we communicate the thing we're trying to say that matters more.
Yeah. So kind of pivoting back to, I guess, to Tamisha a little bit. Your illustrator, Tamisha Anthony, did a wonderful job bringing this world to life. How did you two get teamed up, and how closely did you work together on this project?
So our press brought us together. And so Tamisha and I got to chat, and we learned that we had similar backgrounds as Southern Black women raised in communities of women. I was able to send her a few pictures, snapshots of childhood. And then she built this whole kind of universe. I mean, it's a testament to her genius that she was able to do this. And it was such a pleasure when I saw the illustrations, because I feel like she captured things that aren't actually even that are maybe hinted at by the words, but aren't even explicitly mentioned. And I'm just so grateful. It really just gives a richness and a complexity to this narrative that I think makes it just brings it all the way home.
I'm curious, and you don't have to answer this if you don't want to, because again, it might be a little spoilery. But there's the 1 2 page spread where it's the little girl walking out on her mom in the kitchen paying bills.
Yeah.
That image hit me so hard, and like it felt so like it's what we're talking about, where don't water things down for kids as much as you think you have to. It was just such a real moment. I felt like, and it captured everything so well.
The thing is, we all know that story. We're look, things are expensive right now. Gas is very high. Groceries are very high. Parents are very stressed about how they're going to make ends meet. And creating a space for a young reader to feel like they can name a thing that they're seeing, but also giving them like an emotional container. It's beautifully rendered, and hopefully they can know, yeah, sometimes being an adult is hard, right? That might be why your parents are a little cross with you sometimes, or a little short or a little terse, right? Because adulting is difficult. But one of the ways that our adults love us is that they work hard to make things fine, even when it takes a lot of work to make it okay, you know?
Yeah.
Uh, and that's what I watched my mom do. We were a very, working class, low income family for a long time. And I watched my mother every day figure out how to make ends meet. And I just want to celebrate the power of that, because sometimes our society can make folks feel like they're breaking their children because they aren't rich and because they can't afford all of the fancy things, the clothes, the sports, the activities, all of that stuff that's becoming more expensive. And what I hope is that, if someone can, scrap together a few dollars and buy this book and add it to the story time collection, the nighttime, bedtime story collection. I remember my mother reading me a bedtime story every single night before bed. And if I had to credit one singular thing with making me the kind of intellectual and reader and thinker that I am, that time was so formative. It made me an early reader. And when kids read well, they can, literally take the world by storm.
Kind of winding down, I guess, then, what conversations do you hope that this book sparks, especially among women who may not feel fine yet?
I think that we're always all the people we've ever been at any given moment. And I hope that this book feels like maybe your mom didn't say you're fine enough. And so if your mama didn't do it, maybe the mama in this book can be, the mantra that you hear as you get to fine, right? And can heal those moments of feeling inadequate or feeling like I don't know if I'm strong enough to face this, or oh my goodness, I got hurt and there's no one to like, comfort me. Sometimes the ability to look in the mirror and say, you know what, I'm fine. You stand a little bit taller. All of the children in us still need to hear that. I mean, it helps the adults in us stand up and be better people.
And then I guess lastly, I'm always just curious about this. What is
Yeah.
one question that nobody ever asks you that you always wish that they would?
I get asked lots of questions all the time.
Sorry.
No. Well, I would love it if folks ask me more about my random hobbies, or what kinds of toys that I like to play with as a kid. Because I was a nerdy kid, but I was also a roller skating kid. I was also roller skates were really my jam. And I was very much like a, go outside and play in the dirt kind of kid. And I would love, and I would love the opportunity to just like remember those moments because they feel sometimes so far away from this moment.
Yeah, it's important to hold on to that kid inside of you.
Okay.
Well, Brittany, thank you so much for joining us on the podcast this week. Where can people go to find the book and just find all of the things that you're doing?
Yes, this book is available wherever books are sold. We love it if you get it from a local indie bookstore. And you can follow me on social media at Professor Crunk on all platforms.
Thank you, Brittany, so much for joining us today on the podcast. Guys, please go out and find Mama, I Am Fine wherever you get your books. It is such a charming story, and the kiddo in your life will absolutely love it. That includes the big kid in your life, because I definitely loved it. It's such a charming book. I can't recommend it enough. Please, go find Mama, I'm Fine. Next week on the Writer's Blick podcast, I am sitting down with Kayala Kendall to talk about her latest novel, That Which Feeds Us.
With Hawaii, I actually set out to write a story about my diaspora feelings living in the continent. I realized I was very homesick, and I wanted to go home, even if it was only on the page. And so I was writing the story about a diaspora girl going home for the first time to find her twin. It was definitely more thriller. But as I started to think about what she would see and experience and how to make this story accessible to continental readers who might not be familiar with this vision of Hawaii, because the postcard image is the most popular visage of it, my homeland. I really wanted it to be, I realized a ghost story is what I was telling.
If you guys are enjoying the Writer's Block podcast, please consider leaving us a review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or your podcasting platform of choice. Find us on social media. We are at Writer's Block Pod on TikTok, Instagram, YouTube, and Facebook. Send us an email and get involved with the show. We are writersblockpod@gmail.com. And if you want to go the extra mile and help us keep the lights on, you can find us on Patreon. And if you want to keep up to date with me, what I'm doing, I am at Lego My Grego TV on Blue Sky, and you can find Lego My Grego TV on YouTube. Thank you again to Brittney Cooper for joining us in the podcast this week. Thank all of you for sticking around and listening to this episode. Until next time, I've been Greg, you've been awesome, and please keep writing.